evening, students. Welcome to the Analyst. Today is 18th of Feb 2024 and we look at four important articles from the Indian Express and the Hindu. The first one will be regarding the invalidation of the electoral bonds. Then we'll look at the Paytm fiasco and what happened with RBI. Then we'll understand the cropping of cotton, and lastly we'll look at the Food Corporation of India. Both these topics are from agriculture because farm protest and agriculture is back into the news. Hello students. So this is the first article, that is the invalidation of electoral bonds. Now this invalidation has been done by the Supreme Court, which declared the electoral bonds as unconstitutional. Now please appreciate that we are a democracy. We are a democracy. And which type of democracy we are? We are a representative type of democracy. That means our representatives will be elected. All of us will find one representative from our constituencies and that person will be elected. Now that person who is fighting the election will naturally require some funds, and such type of funding will be called as electoral funding. Now post 2017-18, one of the new routes of funding has been the electoral bond, and that is why we must understand how this electoral bond works. Now it was introduced in 2017-18 and this was brought along with amendment in the Representation of People's Act, in the IT Act and in the Companies Act. Now let's say I want to donate some money to my favorite political party. So what I'll do, I'll go to SBI, the designated branch of SBI, let's say in Delhi. I will go to SBI and I will only use my account where my KYC has been already done. That means I am going through the banking channel. I am not getting a lot of cash to the bank or to the political party. I am going to the bank. In the bank, I say that let's say I want 1 lakh, I want to donate 1 lakh rupees. Now, one point is that I want to donate this money because it is my favorite political party. But another point is that I also want an IT exemption, an income tax exemption, because the money that I'm drawing on a yearly basis, it is falling above 30%, right? So I want to reduce my tax also. So that is why we required an amendment in the IT Act. So tax free, the amount that I am giving to the donating to the political party becomes tax free. Now 1 lakh rupees I am giving to SBI. SBI will issue me a bond. Let's say a single piece of paper. Now this bond happens to be a bearer bond or a promissory note. That means it is as good as cash. Any person who is holding that bond can encash it. But can any person encash it? Can I give it to any person standing on the road? Can I give it to my friend who is not a political party, who is not fighting elections? The answer is no. You can only give this piece of paper, this bond, to whom? To a political party. And can the political party encash it? The answer is yes. From where? From the same branch. Now one point here is, will that bond have my name or the political party name? The answer is no. So that means there is some amount of anonymity which is associated with this bond. I simply go and do a transaction from my bank, get 4 or 5 bonds, and maybe I distribute these 5 bonds to 5 political parties. Why? Because I am a corporation and I am donating to all the political parties. Okay. Now, simultaneously, in an election, what kind of election we want? We want a free and fair election. Now let's say there is 100 rupees that we are pooling. 100 rupees we want to conduct an election. Let's say 80% of the money which was required for election has been donated by 2 to 3 large corporations. So what will happen? Will there be any chance of quid pro quo? Will there be any chance of quid pro quo? Think about it. Now, let's say I am a single individual and I am donating 100 rupees to one political party. If the other political party gets to know, the workers of other political party, they gets to know, then can they victimize me? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. So, anonymity is required to protect the little man, the small individual, right? On the other hand, can I say that if I am a corporation and this corporation has been donating, let's say 100 crores or 200 crores to a political party or a group of political parties, then can I say that would amount to a substantial funding of elections by the corporations? Now here comes the topic of collusive corruption, or to call it as quid pro quo. That means you scratch my back, I scratch you back. I donate 500 crores and at a later point of time you give me tenders for 5,000 crores. So can this happen? The answer is yes. So anonymity or privacy of name is required, but the privacy should not be equal for a single individual and that of a corporation. Why? Because a large corporation can donate a large sum of money, and this large sum of money can therefore have significant impact on the public policy, and which can affect the fairness and freeness of the election process. Now, whose words are these? These are the arguments that the Supreme Court has used in this particular electoral bond case. Now, the Supreme Court has said that you have, as an elector, you are an elector, you are a voter, so you are electing your representatives. You should know who is donating to the political party, what quantum of money is coming, and all these rights are part of your right to information. And right to information has been read by the Supreme Court in Article 19(1)(a), that means in freedom of speech and expression. So along with the fundamental right mentioned in the Constitution, your right of information has been read into by the Supreme Court, and that right is violated because you are not able to, as a voter, I am not able to see that what are the top donors to a political party. Are there any significant corporations which are associated with a political party? And if I am not getting such information, can I say I will also not have anything to know about any quid pro quo relationships? Simultaneously, the other side of the debate is that, do you want anonymity? Do you want to protect the names of the donors? So here the Supreme Court lamented that the donors, they are of different sizes. I can donate 20 rupees, I can donate 2000 crore rupees. So if the person who is donating, let's say 70% of your donations to a single political party, should the public know the name of that individual or that company to say so? Yes. Now, another issue that was highlighted during the arguments was, let's say that there is a company X, and this company creates another shell company in, let's say, Mauritius, and this shell company, it invests into equities or shares of a company Y, which is in India, and this is a small company only worth 100 crore, and this is, let's say, a 10,000 crore company. And what if this Y company is donating to a political party? So rather than going directly, even X is avoiding to go to this route. So essentially, I am round tipping my money to the political party. Why? Because I cannot take the chances that even my name gets leaked from SBI, right? So this route is also available. So there were a lot of allegations which were made by, let's say, the Association of Democratic Reforms, which is the case name ADR versus Union of India. So in this particular case, one of the arguments was that we are not exactly able to trace the large donors. And the large donors, they have a substantial influence, and due to the substantial influence, they might have quid pro quo relationships, and due to this large effect, disproportionate effect, the idea of privacy of donors is not proportionate. how can you say that my name should not be declared while you are contributing 80% to a political party? That was the single argument. So now it was about balancing two fundamental rights. Why? Because post Puttaswamy judgment, you have the right to privacy. Right to privacy. What is Puttaswamy judgment? It is your Aadhaar judgment. So after this, the Supreme Court has clearly declared that you have a right of privacy under Article 21. So it was a fight between two fundamental rights themselves, that is the right to information and the right to privacy, both of which were not present in the constitution and both of which have been read by the Supreme Court in different cases. Now here Supreme Court used the double proportionality test, or simply called the proportionality test. Now here you will ask one question, that whether there is a legitimate state claim. State is claiming that it is acting or it is doing some act. So there must be a legitimate state claim. And the action that the state is taking should be proportionate to the claim. So I want to achieve 100, I want to get 100 marks. So you go and give efforts for 100 marks. So there must be some proportionate in what you want to achieve and what you are doing. So here, what was the argument of electoral bond? The argument of electoral bond is that before the electoral bonds, people were coming and using cash. Cash was being used. And now what has happened? Instead of cash, the formal banking channels are used to pump in thousands of crores into political parties. So this was the single biggest argument, that while I have given anonymity to the donors, but I have also ensured that I have digitized and I have formalized electoral funding. So now at least we have some data of what is electoral funding. And the other side was saying that immaterial of whatever data you are getting, the main issue is that if there is a single individual, if there is a single corporation which is funding a political party, will that single corporation have too much of influence on the leaders and therefore will ask for quid pro quo relations, and this transaction therefore should be open to the public, because the public has the right to know under its right to information under Article 19(1)(a). These are the two aspects of the arguments. Now, Supreme Court weighed in on the side of right to information and to the larger interest of the democracy and proactive democracy. Now here in the double proportionality test, it says that you have to balance state action and fundamental rights. The state action here being electoral bonds, and the fundamental right which was to be violated was the right to information. And there was a mismatch, there was a disproportionality between the action and the rights which were taken away, right? Now, you have to go for least restrictive method for both the right to information and privacy. Now, the court is not saying that you do not have any privacy, but it is saying that in this juncture, the right to information is at a higher pedestal. And who will judge which right is more important? It will be adjudicated on a case-to-case basis, right? Then it highlights the availability of less intrusive methods such as electoral trust to achieve state objectives effectively. Now, simultaneously, the court, it dismissed donor anonymity as a legitimate state aim while prioritizing voters' right to information, and it emphasized the ideas of fostering participative democracy, government accountability, as well as transparency. Now, about the verdict, the court held that unanimously, this 5-judge bench, it said that it has invalidated the electoral bond scheme, or the EBS, and any associated amendments. So what were the amendments? Amendment in the IT Act. Why? Because you are getting exemption if you are using electoral bond in your income tax. There was amendment in Companies Act. So any company is, so let's say you are the shareholder of a particular company. Now, do you have the right to know about the financial statement of the company quarter-wise? The answer is yes. But let's say I am spending 100 crore to fund a political party, but I have got an exemption from the amendment in the Companies Act, of 2013, that I will not declare whatever donations I have given to the political party through electoral bond scheme. That is again a violation of the shareholders. Why? Because the shareholder has no clue where 100 crores have gone, right? So that was also struck down. Then Supreme Court restored the legal framework preceding the Finance Act of 2017. Essentially what they are saying is you have to go for status quo ante. That means you have to go to the status quo which was before the act, before the Finance Act of 2017 and the amendments which were brought in all these acts. Then the Supreme Court issued directive including the immediate cessation of further electoral bonds. That means electoral bond scheme will be suspended from this time onwards. And to furnish the details, this is very important, of bonds purchased by political parties since April 2019 to Election Commission of India for publication on its official website. So a part of electoral bonds who donated has to be published by the Election Commission of India, who is essentially the regulator. Then additionally, unencashed, that means any electoral bond which has not been encashed till this point of time, within their validity period must be returned with refunds issued to purchases by the issuing bank. So this is the electoral bond verdict, and this is your ADR versus Union of India, and you can expect that you can use this particular case law in any argument of, let's say, transparency, accountability, right? Wherever you are talking about, let's say, collusive corruption or big ticket corruption, or you are using the words like quid pro quo, so you can use this as an example, and this can in itself become a direct question in your GS2 paper. Now, what do you do about the way forward? How do you solve such a issue? So multiple committees, commissions, they have gone into the idea of electoral funding. So one is the Indrajit Gupta Committee of 1998, which endorsed state funding of election, and it recommended limitations such as allocating state funds only to national and state parties. On the other hand, ECI, it has given some recommendations in 2004, and it asked for audited accounts of political parties. And multiple times the issue of how and what quantum of money is coming to political party, and that same data to be kept open. Why? Because again, part of right to information of the voters. Then the Law Commission of 1999, it described total state funding of election as a desirable under the condition that political parties are barred from receiving funds from other sources. Now, some other mechanisms which are used in other parts of the world is that respective cap on different sources of funding. Let's say I am an individual, so there must be a cap on how much I can contribute. Similarly, let's say there is a MSME, so how much they can contribute. Let's say there is a large conglomerate, so there can be such a type of regulation also based upon the capacity, so that no particular group can over influence through electoral funding. And simultaneously there are other models. For example, Germany is going for a state funding of elections. Some countries, they are going for partial funding. That means I will not give you funds, but essentially I may give coupons to all my citizens, and these coupons can then be submitted by my citizens to my favorite political party, who can then encash them. So such type of schemes, hybrid schemes, can also be used in particularly in India in accordance with the Indrajit Gupta Committee, where partial state funding has been called for. Let's look at the RBI and Paytm and what happened to Paytm. And so Paytm fiasco post RBI regulation is important. Now you need bank, You need a bank for the economy. Why? Because a lot of people will come in, they will chip in their money, and bank as an institution will provide the same amount of money to people who are in need, and in this process it enables the movement of money, and in itself it can earn some profit. Now, who is the regulator of banking in India? Simply it is RBI, which is responsible for the monetary policy. So in banking, you are getting your personal loans, you are getting your saving account, your current account, your fixed deposit, vehicle loans. So all kind of loans, including your credit cards, debit cards. So all kind of functionings are being provided by banks. Now, when you classify the banks in India, you can say that they are commercial banks. When you are looking at commercial banks, they are essentially coming from a profit motive. Then you have some small finance bank. Now, this is essentially creating a layers of bank. So let's say you have large banks, you have small finance banks, you have Paytm, you have payment banks. So multiple layers of banking. Why? Because you want more and more inclusions of different geographies, of different economic standards, of corporations, as well as of the last person standing in the line. So when you are talking about small finance bank, so you are essentially looking at again profit motive, but the scale is at a small level, and you are essentially looking to target, let's say, the MSME sectors and the unconnected areas or geographies. When you are looking at a payment bank, essentially you are the fulcrum for the movement towards, let's say, fintech and let's say the digital payment ecosystem. So again, a smaller type of bank also running for profit motive, but specializes in payment ecosystem. Then you have cooperative sector. These are not running for profit, and here you have the classification of urban and state cooperative banks. Now, if you are looking at a payment bank, this is a bank which is similar to a regular bank but at a smaller scale, and it has a less credit risk. That means it will also not engage in higher forms of lending activities, and it has been formed on the recommendations of the Nachiket More committee. Again, very important. Why? Can be asked in prelims. Now, the objective is to enhance financial inclusion by providing banking and financial services to unbanked and underbanked areas. Underbanked and unbanked areas and geographies. Then these are formed as public limited company under the Companies Act of 2013 and have got their banking license in Banking Regulation Act of 1949, and the sectoral regulator again is RBI. Now, the permissible activities is that they can accept deposits up to 2 lakh in savings and current accounts, and they can also offer remittance services, mobile payments, transfer purchases, and banking services like ATM, debit cards, net banking, third party fund transfer, and they can also act as BCs or banking correspondents for other banks. For example, let's say Axis Bank, etc. So when you are looking at this particular example, where do you classify a bank like Paytm Payments Bank? So here you will get the Paytm Payments Bank. What about commercial bank? In commercial bank, what kind of banks are you looking at? So in public sector, will you have Bank of Baroda? Will you have the State Bank of India, the Canara Bank? So public sector. What about the foreign banks? So if you are looking at all the anchors, usually the anchor banks in any IPO. So let's say you have HSBC, you have Bank of America, you have, let's say, Morgan Stanley, you have JP Morgan Chase. So all these banks are your foreign banks. When you are looking at private sector banks, you are essentially looking at banks like ICICI, Kotak. Now, can you speculate at this point of time? Can we say that this particular bank, a payment bank, can act as a banking correspondent for, let's say, an Axis Bank or for, let's say, SBI? The answer is yes. Now, what is absolutely prohibited? So you cannot issue loans, credit cards, you cannot accept time deposits or NRA deposits, and you cannot establish subsidiary for NBFC activities, non-banking financial activities. And apart from these banks, you also have companies which are NBFCs, right? Now, the RBI action. So RBI directly on January 31, 2024, PPBL, now remember this name, PPBL, was directed to suspend all its major banking services. On what grounds? Based on report by external auditors, and the RBI has been very categorical in saying that there has been persistent non-compliance, and there has been non-compliance of the act, and then continued material supervisory concerns within the bank. And has this been the first action that RBI has taken on any bank? No, even bigwigs, even the biggest private player HDFC was also given warning in terms of stopping credit card increase or going for new credit cards. So it temporarily halted sourcing new credit cards and stopped the launch of digital business generating activities under the digital 2.0. So multiple times under the regulation of under the key eye of the regulator, these kind of activities has happened. Now the key issue, the real issue, why such regulation or why such oversight has been on Paytm for a long time. Now there is an entity called Paytm, and there is something called as PPBL. PPBL is a payment bank, and Paytm is the startup that we know. Now Paytm is actually called 197 communication, or we can call this as OCL. Now please look at this particular diagram. So at the time of IPO, this is Paytm or OCL. The investors were SoftBank and Ant Financials. Now essentially the idea at this point of time itself in media was that there are lots of Chinese funds which have become the VCs and angels for Paytm. So big investors from China, they have invested good amount of money in Paytm. This is one point. So over the period of time, this was one of the bone of contention. So what do you see? You see that from the time of IPO towards 2023, what you are seeing, that over the period of time, Vijay Shekhar Sharma has been increasing his stake. On the other hand, Ant Financials, which is nothing but your Alibaba. So Ant Financials, it has been decreasing its shares, and SoftBank is also exiting. Why? Because there were issues in the relationship between India and China. Simultaneously, the world was also talking about how Chinese companies and Chinese investors, they are essentially going for a data piracy, and they are essentially stealing the data of millions of citizens across the globe, including US citizens, including Indian citizens. And post the conflict in the Leh-Ladakh sector, naturally the relationship has been estranged, and because of this, the entry of Chinese money during COVID was also prohibited, because there were chances that at very cheap prices company could be bought in, and lot of significant shareholding can be taken by this liquidity that is coming from the Chinese central bank. Now simultaneously, the other entity was PPBL, Paytm Payment Bank. Now in Paytm Payment Bank, what is happening? Who is operating Paytm? Vijay Shekhar Sharma. Who is operating Paytm Payment Bank? Vijay Shekhar Sharma. Here someone is a COO. The same person here in this company has become, let's say, head of operations. So head of operations here chief operating officer. So similar role, different names, but same individual. Now who owns this bank? So here you will see that Vijay Shekhar Sharma owns 51%, and the rest is owned by 197 or OCL, 197 Communication Limited. Now this OCL, in this OCL, who has ownership? Ant Financial, SoftBank. So Ant Financial particularly will naturally be a shareholder of the Paytm Payments Bank. This was about the core governance issue, that the same people are running a bank and they are running the startup. The same people, they are having different positions. Even the office addresses are same. So that creates a huge risk. Why? On the bank and the stability of a bank. Now, simultaneously, there were issues of what? Of chances of data theft. So, RBI in its previous actions has asked for a IT audit. The IT risk audit of Paytm. It suggested that Paytm should go for a IT audit itself, so that it can clearly ascertain what kind of risk can be there. What other issues were there? So multiple PANs per customer. So again, violation of KYC norms. So single PAN, multiple accounts, and cumulatively these transactions running in crores, which raise the issue or chances of siphoning of funds or money laundering. Money laundering through smurfing. That means I am breaking 2 lakh rupees in 100 transactions, making them very small transactions, and finally they will be merged together in some other account. Then concerns about identity theft, money laundering, insufficient documentation, creating vulnerabilities to fraudulent activities, potential data security issues, for example, the bank's IT system, and sharing the common infrastructure, sharing the same manpower, essentially to create, on paper there are two entities, but in reality it is the one and only entity. Then internal control issues, that means insufficient internal control and compliance procedure. Then governance issue, potential deficiency in corporate governance, and we discussed about the shareholding pattern and possibly the shareholding of the Chinese individual and Chinese companies, which can have a very big impact on the data that Paytm has, and therefore for continuous non-compliance the action was taken on Paytm. Let's look at the cropping, that is cotton. So today we look at one of the crops, that is cotton. Now please understand that whenever we are talking about cotton, we talk about the black cotton soil, and it is very important for you to understand how the black cotton soil it has originated. Now what happened is that India, it was part of Gondwana land, and as part of Gondwana land it was moving north. It was moving north towards Eurasia. Now in this movement, what happened is that there was a burner below. This burner was called the Reunion hotspot, and it is nothing but a volcanic activity which is going below the Indian plate. Now when this volcanism was happening, the Indian plate was moving northwards and were drifting in this direction, right? What happened is that in and around these areas, basaltic magma came out. Okay, so due to this basaltic volcanism, what happened? You have a creation of the Deccan traps, which have this type of shape, and this is what? This is your Eastern Ghats, this is your Eastern coastal plains, and here you have the Western Ghats, and here you have the narrow Western coastal plains. So because of this volcanism, what happened is that layers of lava was formed, which created a step-like structure, and therefore this region is also called as the Deccan traps. Now when did this happen? So it happened during the Cretaceous period, and over the period of time, with the degradation of this particular basaltic lava, what happened is we got the black cotton soil, which is rich in titaniferous magnetite, and this cotton is extremely suitable for our cotton cultivation. Now this particular black cotton soil, it has a very unique characteristic that whenever you get a lot of moisture or you get rain, so what happens, it does not allow water to pass downwards. It does not allow the water, so it traps the water and over the period of time stores that water. But with more and more heat, what will happen? The water will evaporate. Once it evaporates, this cotton, it will develop, this soil will develop cracks. And this is called the self-friable nature of the soil. So that is a little about black cotton soil. And the core areas. So cotton can be grown in many states. And you can see in the map that there are multiple states. But what we are saying is the core area of cotton growing is in Gujarat, is in Maharashtra, right? And the core area of black cotton soil is also in this region. And we are also growing cotton in Punjab. That tells me that you need good, fertile, clay and alluvial soil. You can also have a mix of a black clay soil, black cotton soil and red soil where you can cultivate. So these are the regions where you are cultivating your cotton. Now, why cotton is very important is that you are the largest producer of cotton in the world, largest in volumes. Then you are the third largest exporter and the largest consumer, and you are supporting and cotton textile linkage and sugarcane linkage. They are one of the best examples of how agriculture can be associated with manufacturing and industries. It's a very good classic example of how you can create linkages between two sectors of the economy. And if you create linkages, what happens? Lot of money will be pumped from industries and manufacturing towards agriculture. So if you have a ready-made market for your produce, that is the textile industry, that simply tells me that a cotton grower tends to earn more, right? And has the chances of earning more because of remuneration provided by the textile industry. And that simply means that if my textile industry, which is approximately $100 billion worth, so if my textile industry is growing year on year at 10 to 12%, that also means that the same income will also flow into the cotton producing areas, right? Now, you have 25% of the total global cotton production. 67% of India's cotton is cultivated in rain-fed area. Now, if you remember the map of rain-fed area or dryland farming, you will also see these regions. Then, if you remember the map of, let's say, rain shadow areas, again you will see that this region is a very good rain shadow area. This region also, again rain shadow area, right? Again dry areas, rain shadow areas, areas which are being bypassed by the southwest monsoon. Why? So around here you have the Western Ghats. So this region, can I say this region is on the leeward side of Western Ghats, and here you have Aravalli, and so the winds are continuously bypassing the Aravallis. They are not being intercepted by the Aravalli. So what happens? These are a little dry regions. That also tells me that cotton does not require too much of moisture. It does not require too much of moisture, and it can survive in rain-fed conditions only if the soil has that little bit of moisture that it can hold. Simultaneously, what do you want? You want good sunny days, and you absolutely do not want frost. You do not want frost. So the condition is that you approximately need 210 to 300 frost free days. Okay, and you want good sunlight. Also, the cotton cultivation process and the textile industry, they tend to flourish in the coastal areas because of the moisture which is present in the air, right? Now, again, you have three important benefits coming out of cotton. One is the fiber itself, which is directly linked to the textile industry. Then you are looking at cotton seed cake and meal, which is fed to our cows. Then you have feed, that means the leftover cotton seed cake is a protein rich feed ingredient. Now, the growing conditions are, you have hot and sunny climate, 210 to 300 frost-free days, warm and humid environment, coastal areas, black cotton soil, well-drained alluvial soil, mixed black and red soils. But you will see that our cotton cultivation, it really peaked not under normal cotton but under GM cotton or BT cotton. Genetically modified cotton has been a success story, right? So the way we have seen that in green revolution we went for hybrid seeds. Similarly, in case of cotton, we went for genetically modified seeds and essentially BT cotton. So Bacillus thuringiensis. Now, today what we are seeing is that cotton production, it has almost trebled, but then it is now seeing a decline, including the yield as well as the production. And clear decline is there, and this is a cause of concern. What is the biggest reason? It is the pink bollworm, which is also known as PBW. Now, two important prelim pointers here are very important, right? The pink bollworm, now it is a pest and they have to be regulated. Now, how they are being regulated? So if two pests, they are not able to mate, if they are not able to mate, they will not be able to reproduce. So reproduction will be hit. If reproduction will be hit, then what will happen? You will have lesser number and naturally they will eventually die. So now what we are trying to do is to go for mating disruption by use of glossy plure. So remember this word, write this down, glossy plure, which is a pheromone signaling chemical. And similar method, that means you are using some pheromones to attract the pest towards you and then trapping it, let's say with gum or some traps. So similarly, you have the PBK knot. PB, that is pink bollworm, and knot. So in this knot, you will have some pheromones. Okay, there will be a knot which is tied to the crop, and in this knot you will have some pheromones, and so all the insects, they will come, the pest will come towards it, and then they will be trapped or they will stick to it, right? And they will disrupt the mating cycle through synthetic chemicals. Now, what are the other issues that pertain with cotton? So you have yield fluctuations. Why yield fluctuations? Because see, 60% is rain fed. And rain-fed means that I am dependent on the vagaries of nature. I will be dependent on the fluctuations of monsoon. And if there is any issue of climate change, if there is any localized issue, so again, my yields will be disrupted. And let's say due to climate change, frost comes. Or let's say the amount of moisture I want, that is not coming. Or let's say excessive rainfall is coming. So any such condition will affect my crop. Limited irrigation, then a declining soil fertility, and this is a common concern all across, including in green revolution belt, that there has been something called as a soil fatigue. Then you have small holder dominance. Now, over the period of time, what has happened is that the number of small landholders, that has increased. The per capita land has decreased below 1 hectare in India, and so due to the division or subdivision of the land between the families, the overall production and the productivity is tending to decline. Then again, you are dependent on traditional practices because of a lack of economy of scale and limited market access. Now, what is the way forward? You have to move towards your localized seed banks, where you also need to rejuvenate your resilient varieties. Why? Because with GM, what happened is that you boomed and then there was a bust. So boom and then bust. So boom and bust cycle. So this is bust cycle is by pink bollworm, and this boom cycle was with GM cotton or BT cotton. Then you need market linkages through digital platforms. And one issue is that India is majority we are not going for long staple cotton, and we are essentially producing more of short staple cotton, and long staple cotton is what yields majority of the value in market. So volumes are very big, but the value is less because you are not producing the long staple cotton. Then going for integrated pest management and going for a value addition through local processing by integrating yourself in the cotton supply chain, and furthermore in the advanced textile supply chain. Good example is the technical textiles. Let's look at the Food Corporation of India, and this pertains to GS3 agriculture. Now, it was established as a public sector undertaking under the Food Corporation Act of 1964 with the objectives that it will look at effective price support operations so that the farmers, let's say I have a salary of 5 lakh rupees, and tomorrow you tell me that my salary is 3.2 lakh rupees, and then next month you are telling me that my salary is 7 lakh rupees, and then in the next month you are telling me my salary is 70,000 rupees. So what is happening? Huge fluctuation, huge fluctuation. So if this fluctuation is there in anyone's life, in economic life, what happens? You are under tremendous amount of stress, right? So what is happening with farmers is that, let's say you have scarcity, then the prices are shooting, and next year there is glut, so decline. So too much dependence on the market forces of global market forces we are talking about. So what happens? That your price tends to fluctuate a lot, and so you need some price support. That means, let's say you are enjoying good prices, very good, but if I enable, let's say, a floor price, so what happens? That even if the price falls down, okay, you are still able to earn this much, and when the prices rise, then again you are able to earn more. So you are not worried during these times, you are not worried during these times, and you are enjoying during these times. Now, the other aspect is that we have to maintain buffer stock. Now, why do you need buffer stock? Because in our homes, we tend to store grains. Similarly, as a country, we need to store some grains in times of crisis. And this is a more so because this generation, we have seen the COVID-19. We have seen COVID-19 and the reverse migration that was happening, and how people were looking at grains, how people were looking to store as much as possible, right? Grains, vegetables, anything you see, they are trying to use freezers and deep freezers to just store item, okay? Then you are also looking at the national food security, which is guaranteed under the National Food Security Act of 2013, and you also are providing the issues, addressing the issues of hunger and starvation. Now please understand that India is suffering from not only malnutrition but also, let's say, aspects like anemia, or let's say stunting, wasting. So whenever we are talking about the global hunger index, India is getting a bad rank, and then again we are coming at the aspects of, let's say, nutritional security. So all these aspects, to address all these aspects, we need a body which is looking at procurement, which is looking at, let's say, creating some operational and buffer stocks. Then to look at the MSP scheme. Why? Because FCI will procure, it will procure at MSP whenever, let's say, we were talking about a benchmark, a floor price, let's say. So whenever the price of the commodity falls below this level, so what will happen? Here FCI will come and rescue you, and when it rises, you can sell it to, let's say, ITC, you can sell it to LACE, but when it declines, who will hedge you? It is the Food Corporation of India. Now, what are the challenges? So, challenges in terms of procurement, storage and distribution. Now, here the main argument is that FCI is not working with scientific logistics. For example, if I am procuring some goods from Chhattisgarh, then why I am storing it in Madhya Pradesh? Or if I am procuring from Chhattisgarh, then moving the item to MP, and then again redistributing it as grains in Chhattisgarh. So these kind of issues were there, such bottlenecks were there with the Food Corporation of India. Then another issue was how you are storing the grain. So suddenly you bought the grains, okay, so you bought extra grains. Why? Because this year farmers need some extra support because the prices have, let's say, fallen down. Now, where are you storing it? So at times you are storing it in grain silos, but at most of the times where you do not have the functional infrastructure, you are going for plinth and cover. So essentially you are making these structures and on a platform, and let's say this is all grain, and above the grain you are putting a plastic sheet. And here rats are coming, they are infesting, they are eating away the food, and this can lead to severe, health hazards. Then the issue of grain diversion, right? So I am coming with 100 kg. Okay, by the time it reaches, it is 50 kg grain and 50 kg stone, right? 50 kg impurities are this impurity adulteration. This is going on, right? So plundering and grain diversion, right? Now, what is the way forward? So Shanta Kumar committee, now it asks that FCI should be an agency for innovation in food management systems. And Shanta Kumar committee has been very categorically saying that a lot of non-core operations, for example, storage. So FCI is buying, but why it is storing? If there are some efficient private players and if there are some localized, so idea is, can you go for decentralized procurement, decentralized storage, and localized distribution? The question that we are saying, let's take an example. Let's say that Amazon, okay, I place an order on Amazon, right? And Amazon, let's say it has a regional hub. Let's say it has a very large 4 regional hubs, okay? And the moment I place the order, this item will be shipped from this place to this place, and then it will reach to this place where I am living. So this is one model of logistics. The other model, which let's say Blinkit is using, is, let's say this is Delhi, and so you will have multiple storage areas in Delhi itself. And so when I place an order, it is rushed in from Delhi itself rather than to fly it from Mumbai, right? From a central warehouse. So rather than too much of centralization in terms of storage, in terms of procurement and distribution, why cannot we have some localized model as well as integration? So let's say I have X capacity, okay? Now when I add the storage capacity of the private sector, so can I say at least it will become 2x? So I will be able to store more amount of grains in a hygienic environment. Then to outsource procurement in efficient states, but to centralize in others. So if you're performing well, you are going for end-to-end computerization, I will go for outsourcing it or localizing it. And if you are not performing well, then I will have to naturally centralize it. Then implementation of cash transfers, that is DBT, direct benefit transfers. Then set buffer stock quotas and outsource stocking operations to various agencies and automate liquidation of excess stock. So unnecessary, why you are adding to the pile? The moment you have, there should be a limit. The moment your grain silos are, going 10% above your limit, you should offload the grains in free market. You should not have, and then there was an idea of first in, first out. That idea has also to be shelved, right? So all those recommendations are coming from the Shanta Kumar committee, and then to employ these self-help groups or SHGs and the farmer producer organization for the last mile connectivity, so that they can also have a share of the pie in the entire supply chain of food, grain, distribution, procurement, etc. Thank you so much. I hope it helped.